My cheating wife stole my laptop for her lover, so I stole her reputation. It started with a missing laptop, but it ended with a destroyed marriage and a secret affair exposed to the world. Sometimes, the search for something small leads you to uncover a lie that's bigger than you could ever imagine. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story about how the quiet erosion of trust can lead to a full-blown earthquake that shatters a life. It's a chilling reminder that when someone is trying to make you feel crazy, it's usually to cover up their own twisted reality. If you enjoy stories where the truth finally comes to light, make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on. You won't want to miss the journey we're about to embark on. My name is Ethan, I'm 35, and for 6 years, I was married to a woman named Clara. She's 33. Looking back, our marriage felt like a photograph that slowly fades over time. The first few years were vibrant, filled with brilliant colors of passion, laughter, and that intoxicating feeling of building a future together. We were inseparable, but as the years passed, the colors began to wash out. The intense reds of passion cooled into a muted pink, and the bright yellows of joy became a pale, distant beige. It wasn't a sudden change, but a gradual leaching of affection. She didn't hate me. That would have been easier to understand. Instead, it was an absence, a void where her warmth used to be. The grand gestures and small, thoughtful acts that defined our early years disappeared. I'd still buy her flowers or plan a surprise date night, but her reactions became polite rather than passionate. I told myself this was normal. I looked at our friends, at other couples, and saw similar patterns. Love, it seemed, often evolved into a comfortable, quiet companionship. Two people sharing a roof, a bed, and a life, but not necessarily their souls. I accepted it. I kept trying, thinking maybe my efforts could coax some of that old warmth back to the surface. But a storm was brewing beneath the calm surface of our typical marriage, and it was about to make landfall in the most unexpected way. It all began with something as simple and mundane as a missing laptop. I owned 2 laptops, a sleek, professional one for my 9-to-5 job and an older, bulkier personal one. The work machine was for spreadsheets and presentations. My personal laptop, however, was my digital sanctuary. It was for late-night gaming sessions, for diving down internet rabbit holes, and for torrenting old, obscure films. It was my space, completely separate from my professional life. Because I didn't use it every day, a week or 2 might pass without me even touching it. I kept it tucked away on the top shelf of our bedroom wardrobe, safe and out of the way. But one Tuesday evening, I had a sudden urge to play a classic strategy game from my college days. I went to the wardrobe, reached up to the shelf, and my hand met empty air. I wasn't concerned at first. Maybe I'd moved it and forgotten. I began a methodical search of the house. I checked under the bed, behind the TV, in the office, even in the kitchen cabinets. Nothing. The logical part of my brain started to feel a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. This wasn't right. The next day, I checked my office at work, thinking I might have absent-mindedly packed both laptops one morning. Again, nothing. It was as if the device had simply vanished. It was only then, after exhausting every other possibility, that I asked Clara. I'd hesitated because, frankly, she had no reason to ever touch it. It wasn't in her way, and she had her own computer. When I asked, "Hey, have you seen my personal laptop?" she looked up from her phone with a blank expression. She said it was probably right where I always kept it. When I told her it wasn't, a flicker of what looked like surprise crossed her face. She put her phone down and helped me search the house again, her movements theatrical and full of supposed concern. Of course, we found nothing. Then came the suggestions. "Maybe you took it to work and forgot," she offered, a theory I had already debunked. "Or maybe you left it in the car, and someone broke in and stole it." I checked the car. No signs of a break-in. Her next theory was the most absurd. What if someone broke into the house? I stared at her. A burglar who ignores the brand new PS5 in the living room, the jewelry on her dresser, and my expensive work laptop sitting on the desk, only to climb into our wardrobe and steal a 7-year-old personal computer? It was ludicrous. It felt like she was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something would stick. I thought she was just trying to be helpful, in her own scattered way, until she said the one thing that sent a chill down my spine. "Were you even really still using that laptop anyway?" The question hung in the air, cold and sharp. My mind went blank. What kind of response was that to a potential home invasion? What? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It felt like she was trying to minimize the loss, to make the problem itself disappear by suggesting the object didn't matter. It was a bizarre, illogical leap. Seeing the look on my face, she must have realized her mistake. She quickly changed the subject, promising to do a more in-depth search later. I pretended to let it go, but her words echoed in my mind. Why would her first instinct be to devalue the missing item? It was the kind of thing you say when you're trying to make someone feel better about something you know they can't get back. The thought gnawed at me, an incessant, biting pest. A few days later, I couldn't take it anymore. The silence and the unanswered question were driving me mad. I brought it up again, this time more directly. Clara, I started, trying to keep my voice even. I need you to be honest with me. Do you know what happened to my laptop? I didn't accuse her of anything directly, but the implication was clear. I was suggesting she was hiding something. The air crackled with tension, and the fight I had been dreading erupted. She became defensive, hurt, outraged that I would even think she had anything to do with it. She maintained her innocence with a conviction that almost made me believe her. Almost. I backed down. I didn't have proof, and I knew pushing further would only allow her to paint me as the paranoid, accusatory husband. She was already laying the groundwork, making me question my own judgment. I was being gaslit, slowly and expertly. I realized then that if I didn't find cold, hard evidence, she would twist this entire situation until I actually believed I was losing my mind. So, I decided to do one last, exhaustive search, not for the laptop, but for certainty. I retraced my steps for the 10 days prior to its disappearance. I called friends whose houses I'd visited. I went back to the 2 fast food joints I'd stopped at. No one had seen it. I tore our house apart, every drawer, every closet, every forgotten corner. It was gone. With every other possibility eliminated, only one remained. Clara knew, and she was lying. Accusing her again would be pointless. I needed proof she couldn't deny, couldn't twist, couldn't manipulate. There was only one place I might find it: her phone. The thought of invading her privacy made my stomach turn, but the thought of living with her lies was infinitely worse. That night, I waited. I lay in bed, pretending to be asleep, my heart pounding against my ribs. She scrolled through her phone for an hour before her breathing deepened and the device slipped from her grasp onto the mattress. The moment had come. Carefully, quietly, I reached over and picked it up. We had never hidden our passcodes. It was a symbol of our trust, a bitter irony that wasn't lost on me. I unlocked it and went straight to her messages. My fingers felt clumsy and cold as I scrolled. I found a conversation with a contact named Leo. The profile picture showed a young guy, maybe in his mid-20s, with a cocky smirk. I'd never heard her mention anyone named Leo. The most recent messages were about some family drama he was having. It seemed innocent enough. But as I scrolled up, my blood ran cold. I saw her ask him, "But how are you liking it, though? Does it suit your needs?" His reply came a moment later. "It's perfect. Seriously, I really appreciate it." My breath caught in my throat. What was it? It had to be the laptop. It had to be. Just as I was about to scroll further, to find the message where she offered it to him, Clara stirred beside me. A jolt of pure adrenaline shot through me. I exited the chat, locked the phone, and placed it back beside her hand in a single, panicked motion. My heart was hammering so hard I thought she would hear it. She mumbled something in her sleep and rolled over. 10 minutes later, she woke up completely. "Why are you still awake?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. I mumbled an excuse about work stress and waited for what felt like an eternity for her to fall back asleep. But the damage was done. My nerve was gone. I didn't have the guts to pick up the phone again that night. I was left with a fragment of a conversation, a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. Who was Leo? A cousin? A friend in need? Or was he something more? My mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. I was almost certain she had given my laptop to this guy, but without the full context, I couldn't be sure. Confronting her now would still be my word against hers. Being in a situation where your gut is screaming that something is wrong, but you have no concrete proof, is one of the most isolating feelings in the world. It's mental torture. If you've ever had to trust your intuition against someone else's lies, share your experience in the comments below. It's important to know you're not alone in these battles. The next few days were excruciating. I lived in a state of hypervigilance. watching her, analyzing her every word, every text. The comments and support from my first post online gave me the courage I needed. People told me I wasn't crazy for being suspicious. They affirmed that in a marriage, there shouldn't be secrets worth hiding. Their validation was the push I needed. I had to know the truth, no matter how ugly. A few nights later, the opportunity came again. She fell asleep, phone in hand. This time, I was prepared. I grabbed her phone, and as a precaution suggested by many online, I started recording the screen with my own phone. I needed undeniable, documented proof. I went straight back to her chat with Leo and scrolled up past the point where I'd stopped. And there it was. The whole sordid story, laid out in text messages. Leo was a master's student she had met, though the messages didn't say where. Their conversation, which started 2 months ago, was flirty from the very beginning. It didn't take a genius to figure out he was her affair partner. They had been sleeping together. They were careful with their words, but the meaning was clear. Phrases like "last night was amazing" and "can't wait to do that again" were littered throughout the chat. I counted at least 3 separate occasions they had met up. The betrayal was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. But it got worse. Apparently, Leo, the broke college student, had spilled beer on his laptop and couldn't afford a new one. He complained to Clara about it, a classic damsel in distress move, knowing she would come to his rescue. She had become his sugar mommy. He mentioned needing about $1,000. She told him she couldn't give him the cash, but she had a spare laptop lying around at home. My laptop, my digital sanctuary, filled with 7 years of my life, my memories, my projects. She had stolen it from me, from our home, and given it to the boy she was cheating on me with. And while I was tearing the house apart, losing my mind with worry and frustration, she had played the concerned wife, watching me with pity and deceit in her eyes. The sheer audacity was staggering. Why not give him her own laptop? Because she used hers daily. Mine was disposable to her, just as, I now realized, I was. I felt like the world's biggest fool. The anger that rose in me was volcanic, a hot, choking rage. I left the bedroom, unable to breathe the same air as her, and went to the couch. I didn't sleep a wink that night. My mind was a chaotic race of memories, now all tainted by her betrayal. Every "I love you," every smile, every touch felt like a lie. Had our marriage ever been real, or was I just a comfortable placeholder until someone more exciting came along? I had loved this woman, built a life with her. To be discarded so carelessly was a pain deeper than I could have imagined. I knew then that our marriage was over. There was no discussion to be had, no therapy that could fix this. This was a betrayal on a fundamental level. I decided I would confront her, but not yet. Not until the divorce papers were drawn up and ready. I would give her no room to talk her way out of this, no opportunity to gaslight me further. This time, I would be in control. And as for Leo, he wouldn't be spared either. He was a willing participant in the destruction of my marriage. He would face the consequences too. My grief was quickly hardening into a cold, sharp desire for justice. Or maybe, it was just revenge. Adjusting to the idea of being a single man again was like learning to walk after a major injury. It was disorienting and painful, but overriding the pain was a profound sense of relief. A cancerous tumor had been cut out of my life. I was free from her lies, her deceit, her betrayal. I was done with Clara, forever. While I waited for my lawyer to prepare the divorce papers, I took the first step of my plan. I hired a private investigator. I gave him Leo's phone number, which I copied from Clara's phone. All I wanted was a full name and any social media profiles he had. The PI delivered within 48 hours. I had my target. I had no desire to meet him in person. I didn't trust myself not to get violent. 2 weeks later, the papers were ready. I chose a quiet evening. We were both home. The doorbell rang. "Can you get that?" I asked, my voice calm and steady. She went to the door and was met by a process server who handed her a thick envelope. She walked back into the living room, a confused look on her face. She had noticed my coldness over the past 2 weeks, the way I'd moved into the guest room, but she had no idea what was coming. She opened the envelope, and her face went pale. There was no shouting, no anger, just a quiet, stunned disbelief. She looked at me, her eyes wide. "Is there someone else?" she asked. The hypocrisy was so staggering I almost laughed. She was projecting her own sins onto me, a final, desperate attempt to reframe the narrative. I just shook my head. You know exactly why, Clara. I looked her dead in the eye. Tell me where my laptop is. Her response was a masterclass in deflection. You're divorcing me over a laptop? No, I said, my voice dangerously low. Though I would. I'm divorcing you for who you gave it to. Who is Leo, Clara? I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. She tried to formulate a lie, but I didn't give her the chance. Answer me, I yelled, the sound echoing in the silent apartment. She flinched, a small, satisfying reaction. She stammered out a pathetic story about him being just a poor student she met who needed help with his schoolwork. She swore nothing was going on between them. You expect me to believe you? I scoffed. When you lied to my face for days while I was going crazy looking for it? We don't have the money for me to just go out and buy a new one. Why would you give my property to a complete stranger? I let the question hang in the air before delivering the final blow. I know you're sleeping with him. I saw the messages on your phone, Clara. I saw everything. That's when she broke. The color drained from her face as she realized she was cornered. There were no more lies to tell. She tried to explain, to apologize, but I held up a hand. I pointed to the papers in her lap. Save your breath. It's over. I told her she had 2 hours to pack a bag and get out of my apartment. The tears started then, of course. The performance of the heartbroken wife who had just been caught. She cried that she had never seen this cruel side of me. I won't lie. Seeing her crumble gave me a dark rush of satisfaction. She finally packed her things and left. A few days later, she called, begging me to reconsider. She promised to get the laptop back. I told her I wanted it back, not because I wanted her back, but because it had 7 years of my life on it. Photos, documents, memories that were irreplaceable. 2 weeks passed. She showed up at the apartment. Her face was grim. I can't get it back, she said. Leo sold it. A white-hot rage, purer and more intense than anything I had ever felt, consumed me. He sold it. The final insult. Not only did they steal from me and betray me, but they had also erased a part of my past for a quick buck. I screamed at her to get out, to never show her face to me again. I came so close to losing control, so close to doing something I would regret. That night, the divorce became a war. I instructed my attorney to be ruthless. We didn't have a house or massive assets to split, but I made sure the infidelity and the theft of my personal property I owned before our marriage, were front and center. I argued for compensation far beyond the laptop's monetary value. I argued for the emotional distress, the violation, the destruction of irreplaceable personal data. And I won. I got the apartment and the majority of our shared savings. She was left with practically nothing. For most people, that would have been enough. But for me, it was only phase 1. Once the divorce was finalized, it was time for phase 2. I opened my laptop, my work laptop, and navigated to Facebook. I drafted a post, carefully detailing the entire story. The lying, the cheating, the gaslighting, the theft of my personal computer, and the final insult of it being sold by her college-aged lover. I tagged both Clara and Leo. I attached the screenshots of their messages I had recorded from her phone. Then, I clicked post. I shared it on my own wall. I shared it to a large, public community group for our city. And then, I shared it to the official student group page for the university Leo attended. It got deleted from the city page after a few hours, but the college page? They loved the drama. It stayed up for nearly a week, gathering hundreds of comments and shares. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. She called me, her voice shaking with rage. Really, Ethan? She shrieked. She launched into a tirade about how I was enjoying her pain, how I had never truly loved her, how I had abandoned her emotionally, which is why she ran into someone else's arms. It was a pathetic, self-pitying performance. She told me everyone was talking about her, that she was a laughingstock, that the post had even been screenshotted and shared on Instagram gossip pages. Then came the ultimate manipulation. If I do something to myself, she whispered, it will be your fault. I just laughed. A cold, empty laugh. I knew her game. She wasn't broken. She was just angry she got caught and was now facing public consequences for her private actions. She wanted to guilt me into feeling bad, to make me the villain of the story she had written. But I couldn't feel a thing for her anymore. You made your bed, Clara, I said. Now lie in it. And I hung up the phone. She made me feel the worst I have ever felt in my life. This was my way of taking back the power she had stolen from me. She will be fine, eventually, and I will continue to heal. That's all there is to it. The chapter is closed. What Ethan went through wasn't just a simple case of cheating. It was a calculated campaign of psychological manipulation. Every strange excuse Clara threw out. Maybe it was stolen from the car. Were you even using it anyway? Wasn't just a lie. It was a carefully placed brick in the wall she was building around him, a wall designed to make him doubt his own reality. This minimizing of his concerns, this gaslighting, is a classic tactic. It's designed to make the victim feel irrational and overly emotional, so they stop asking questions. She thought he was a fool who would never piece it together. But she underestimated his intuition and his resolve to find the truth. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to twist reality to cover their own tracks? Share your stories and your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience could help someone else who feels like they're losing their mind. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. We'll see you next time.